And welcome to another edition of the new Sports Outlaws podcast. As always, I am Neil and this is Dan. Dan, we've officially reached hibernation time. Football is over, although we will even mention it on this podcast because we're getting ready for the combine and the draft, free agency, tagging seasons here. Basketball is just about to pick up from the All-Star break. NHL is on their All-Star break, which includes international play, which we'll talk about. And Yankees and Mets are getting geared up to start spring
Yeah, I
training. How
think
you
you
doing this week?
doing good. Well, I think you explained. I think that word you used was perfect with hibernation, with kind of every kind of sports media outlet is just trying to pull something to kind of fill up their time and talk about whether it's injuries in spring training or even the All-Star game in the NBA or finding something to kind of fill the time between now and baseball season, which is coming up. I think spring training is still too long. We still got like 6 weeks or so until the beginning of the year, which is a long time because we'll have a lot of time to talk. But we still have some things to talk about, and let's get started. Where do you want to start?
Yep. All right. So, let's start with basketball. Basketball's about to come out of the All-Star break. Your Brooklyn Nets are only a game and a half out of a play-in spot. And of course, we'll talk a lot about the Knicks as well. The Knicks have a pretty daunting task ahead of them. In the next 5 games, you're going to see the Bulls, the Cavs, the Celtics, the Sixers, and then the Grizzlies. That's a pretty daunting task coming out of the break. But they may have some good news. Reports today are that Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby are both full participants at practice today, which, could lead to the healthiest the Knicks have been all year, in addition to meshing all these pieces together. So, what is your independent basketball opinion
But
on the Knicks?
the negative part of the Knicks is Josh Hart is out tomorrow. So he has something, I forget, they called it some kind, I forgot what the name of it was, but he's definitely not playing tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. I know they got the Bulls tomorrow, I believe. So before they got the Celtics and the Cavs. So it'll be interesting to see how they go without their super utility, kind of do it all, jack of all trades player, Josh Hart. Yeah, no, the Knicks, it's just a matter of them. They got to stay healthy. And I think we talked about this. I'm pretty sure they're a lock for the 3 seed, maybe the 4 seed at the worst if they come crashing down a little bit. But they should be a lock for a top 3 seed, which is kind of where we expected it. I think maybe we expected 2 seed. We didn't expect the Cavs to be this good. But a 2-3 seed is kind of where we expected them to be. And at this point, it's just they're still kind of a newer team coming together. They still got Cat. They got Mikal Bridges. I know everybody else is. They kind of got to get their bench figured out, like in terms of rotations wise. Like, are they playing Precious? Are they going to play that guy? You know his name. Big guy coming off the bench. There you go. If they're going to give him any minutes, even because it seems like him and Cat play well together when Cat's at the 4. So they got to figure things out. But I think that's kind of their goal for the rest of the 30-somewhat games that they have left. Is just kind of get everybody healthy, especially OG. He's got to be healthy. And I think anything you get from Mitch is going to be an addition. So you need to get, I don't think you should expect anything from him. But anything you can get from him, I think would be a positive.
Yeah, agreed. And I believe that the Knicks, I don't want to say they're dead from catching Boston because there's something to be said. Although Boston has looked good this year, they have moments where it's like they're in a slumber because they won a championship last year. They're only 2.5 back of Boston. I wouldn't rule out the Knicks catching them, but inevitably, I think it's going to end up the Knicks like everybody else. I'm not breaking ground here. I think it's going to be Knicks and Boston in the second round of the playoffs, and we'll see where the chips fall in that series. Like you said, last year the Knicks were not so healthy going into the playoffs. I know Josh Hart's nursing something right now. If OG is back, if Mitchell's back, it lessens the burden to Josh Hart anyway. So hopefully we'll have a healthier team, full bore going into the playoffs. Dan, I want to give you your at least 30-second opinion on what we should expect from the Brooklyn Nets. If I had to ask you an honest question right now, off the cuff, you're a game and a half out of the playoff spot. If I told you you could finish the fifth worst record in the league or be the 10 seed and be in the play-in, which one would you
If I
pick?
had to
You'd have
choose
to pick
that,
right
I'm
now.
choose the fifth pick, top five pick. Even though I'm really anti-tank, kind of in that boat. If we're not going to win a title, well, we're not really going to make any hay in the playoffs. If we make the 10th seed and somehow get to a playoff game, I guess that's a first year success. But again, that's really in the middle of nowhere. Would I love to see them go further? Of course I would. I'm a fan. I would want to see them. I don't want to see them lose and get blown out. But I do know ultimately that a top five pick, especially in these next couple drafts that are supposedly loaded, would definitely be beneficial for our success.
Yeah, and just a crossover from sports to defend you there. Although you root for the best chance at a good pick, this isn't football. You don't lose out and get the best pick. I mean, we went over this a couple weeks ago on the podcast. There has been very little as far as meaning you finish worst or you finish bottom three, you're getting a top three pick. It's not how it usually works in the NBA. I don't like I said over the last decade and a half. There's been at least one, if not two, teams who finished in the bottom three that did not get a top three pick in the draft. So I mean, it's listen. Not that you ever root for your team to lose, but there's a legit reason to root in the NFL. If the Giants had lost those games last year, to have Jaden Daniels as quarterback and not now still looking for a quarterback.
I mean, I don't want them to take. I think it'll just happen naturally. I don't think it's. I'm not rooting for. I mean, not like we have. I guess what Cam Thomas is supposed to be coming back. I think it'll just kind of happen naturally. But in terms of your Giants thing, I think everyone just kind of just begging for a quarterback. I don't even. I mean, I know you like Cam Ward. We'll talk. We have so much time to talk about football, but I think Giant fans and Jet fans, I guess at this point, are just kind of begging for whatever quarterbacks in the next draft. Cam Ward could be great, but it could have been anybody. I
Yeah.
think everyone just kind of that quarterback is just a thing, and everyone's just begging for the next one.
Yep, and we're gonna get to that. I don't want to. There's one other thing I should have that as my next sport to go to, but I did want to mention the NBA All-Star Game before we totally moved on from the NBA because there was some news with the NBA All-Star Game. Well, here's not news. The NBA All-Star Weekend is absolutely broken, and that's coming from two guys, older guys, to do a podcast from the state of New Jersey. But if you follow anybody in media, everyone believes that even the staunchest NBA fan thinks that the NBA All-Star Weekend is broken. They keep dusting off Matt McClung, who barely plays in the regular season for any team, and then they bring him out here for the dunk contest, and his dunks have been decent. I'm not taking anything away from him there. But the skills competition was a joke with the disqualification of the Spurs because they found a loophole. And the three-point contest is what it is. It's not bad. It's not good. It's not. It is what it is. It's mid, as the kids say. But the point I want to get from you, because I had a couple of students that I love to grill when anything bad happens to LeBron James. And when he backed out of the NBA All-Star Game with only 2 hours before game time, where people were spending thousands of dollars to see him and others, but him in the All-Star Game, maybe his last All-Star Game or one of his last All-Star Games, he took a spot away from a kid. If he had said last week, you didn't just realize 2 hours before the NBA All-Star Game, my foot hurts. No, that's been hurting you for a while. You're 40. No one would have blamed you if you said last week, thank you, I'm going to be there, but I'm not going to play. Then you could have given one of these other kids like Sabonis or Norman Powell a spot on an All-Star team. For him to do that just shows me again why he's such a scumbag. And he's not Jordan and he's not Kobe because
I
neither one of them
definitely
would have done that.
think this All Star game, like everything, like the skills challenge and everything, and then the game, kind of definitely showed a disconnect between the players and Adam Silver, the commissioner. I think they definitely made it known that something is not right with something, whether it was the All-Star game or something. But between what Chris Paul was doing and his skills challenge, between nobody of any value, of any NBA worth, is participating in the slam dunk. I mean, sorry, we had a couple of guys. I know we had a couple of rookies in that slam dunk contest, but it's really headlined by Mac McClung. And then the All-Star game, where you kind of touched on, no one can defend LeBron. Usually there's always defenders of LeBron. I don't see how many defenders of LeBron can come out and say it. Especially, and I know he's 40, but he's still the face of the league until he retires in a couple of years. Anthony Edwards did the same thing. He just didn't make it public, really. He just kind of didn't play. And again, LeBron James was really bad. He was taking pictures in the uniforms when he's in his street clothes. I thought that was whoa, what? I guess they're not going to say no to LeBron James, or like, what are you doing there? I don't know.
Either put the uniform
what do
on
you
or
want to
get
be in the
out of the
picture
picture. What are
for?
you doing?
And then also, as like the voting, kind of going to your guys, how Jalen Brunson was voted as a starter for the All-Star game. I don't even know what that means, considering they broke it up into 4 teams, and he played a total of 8 minutes. When you guys have in the Rising Stars played all these rookies, and I think you saw a lot more of those rookies and second-year guys from those 2 teams that played on Saturday and Sunday. You saw more of them than you did of Jalen Brunson and probably Cat. I'm not sure how many minutes Cat played, but that's definitely negative if he only played 8 minutes. Yeah, they got to put some incentive in there for the All-Star game, whether it's a money thing or something, because I wanted it to change, and I was kind of happy that they went that way, but just looking at it, I did watch it, and it wasn't good to watch. It was, the way TNT did it too with Kevin Hart, it was really bad, actually, because it was too many distractions. It was not much of a game. I think they got to go back to like kind of the East West or USA World or kind of thing, but they have to have incentive. Maybe like how MLB does it with home court on the line, something like that. But they got to figure out whether they got to sit down and figure out how do we get these guys going again. But yeah, because it was embarrassment.
So segue from this All-Star game to the graphic behind me. And listen, I know you and I disagree on this, but if you listen to a lot of the pundits out there, whether it be local or national, they've talked about, can the NBA learn anything from the NHL? Now, the NHL doesn't do this every year. NHL has their boring All-Star games too, but every couple of years, they bang out something that is like an international flavor. I know I saw some people floating out NBA might not work like that for international flavor. Maybe a lot of these players really have a tie to their alma mater. Maybe you do like players from schools, maybe teaming up like 2 schools and have like a tournament like that. I'd be open to any type of suggestions. But to pitch back to our next topic, I wanted to quickly mention that this this all-star international expose here with the NHL has gotten a lot of attention. And I know that you weren't as big a fan as I am, but you got to admit, hockey is usually never talked about. And this has been talked about almost ad nauseum for the last week.
Yeah. What hockey has that similar to what soccer does in terms of what they have is they have obviously players that really they have a strong pride in where they come from, and it seems like just watching. I've watched a couple minutes of the game. I haven't watched the full game yet, but it's definitely the effort level is definitely um, on display. And I think as fans, that's kind of all we want to see during these times is just having the best of the best from their respective countries and be able just to duke it out, battle it out. I don't think it really works for basketball, just because there is so many countries. I don't think there's that many countries. Maybe you can prove me. I'm not sure if there's that many countries for hockey. Maybe that's. Like in terms of where.
Now, with
No, no.
with this
But I'm
tournament,
saying
it was
like
just the 4
predominantly in the
nations. But
NHL. Is it
could,
predominantly just those 4? Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of different countries for the NBA.
no,
For hockey, is it
I mean,
mostly 4,
if
5,
Russia,
6?
if the country of Russia if the country of Russia wasn't persona non grata right now, what's going on in the Ukraine, Russia has a very big following. They weren't included in this. You get another 3 or 4 other nations, 5 other nations from hockey, yes. But like I was saying before, like you just said, that doesn't specifically work with the NBA. They'd have to figure something else out. That's why I heard somebody suggest alma mater, which I think at least works better than international countries. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
the
no, the
answer though.
NBA's got a lot, but yeah, no, definitely this. I have a lot of positive feedback from this hockey, and obviously looking at those few minutes of that Canada USA game where there was the few fights in 9 minutes because the Canadians were mocking the national anthem. Obviously, it showed the passion, and that's kind of when you go to any playoff hockey game, especially. That's what you see, and that's what it is, and that's why it's getting so much good media.
On what you just said, I got a question for this, and then I got a question that'll get us into our next topic. My question to you is this: there was 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of the first game between America and Canada in Toronto, I believe. And because they booed the national anthem for the USA, maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it didn't. If I were to give you an over under of 2.5 fights in the final, you taking the over?
Yeah, I think Canada is definitely. I don't know if they felt embarrassed, but I think Canada definitely probably felt some type of way, and especially they lost. What was it, 3-1? I believe in that game, or so I think Canada maybe rolled in there. Well, they kind of rolled in there like, all right, we're the better team. I think they're going to be out to kind of show that, all right, this is still kind of our sport. And United States are going to kind of be out there too. I would go over the 2.5, definitely.
They will try. No, but USA's got a lot of injuries that I've been reading up on. So we will see. I'll be watching tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And then my next question for you that was my first question. My next question for you is, I want a prediction from you, Daniel. It's a shot in the dark. Who is quarterbacking next season for the New York Giants game 1? Who is quarterbacking for the New York Jets game 1 next year? Who do you think is quarterbacking for each one of these teams game 1 next season?
For game 1, I'll start with the Jets. And I think just game 1, I'm not sure they're going to do the draft, but I think they're going to start Tyrod Taylor game 1 against whoever it is next year. I don't think they're going to go after. I mean, I'm not sure, but I don't see them really going after. I think they got a more clean house. I don't really see them going after too much of a quarterback because they really don't have much cap space to talk about unless they're just going to unload everybody in terms of like the Kirk Cousins, the trading for Matt Stafford. I know there was news they were talking to the Titans about the number 1 pick. I know there's news of that. But I think they kind of go veteran, and I'll just say Tyrod Taylor. For the Giants, that's a hard one. I know there's feelers everywhere. I'm gonna go with. I think they're gonna pull off. I think they're gonna trade for Matt Stafford. And then I think Stafford will kind of be the bridge quarterback. I still think if they stay in the quarterback market and they either trading up to 1 or 3, however that works, I think Sanders or Ward will kind of maybe be a bridge, whether it's middle of the year or maybe 1 year on the bench. But I do think the Giants trade for Stafford, knowing they just bought a family member in the coaching realm, and I think Stafford starts the Giants.
Yeah, you know what? With the Giants side, Dan, I want to agree with you, but just to be different, I'll throw something else out there. I think it's going to be Stafford, but to be different, I'll throw something else out there. I'm going to say I'm going to go with my original pick because I just saw another article yesterday about it that they think the Giants will eventually circle back to Justin Fields because he is more of the skill attributes that Brian Daboll got the best out of Daniel Jones. And if you're asking me who's a better quarterback, Daniel Jones or Justin Fields, I'm going to tell you Justin Fields 9 times out of 10. I watched the kid at Ohio State actually play a good college quarterback, and he can move. He's mobile. He does have a pretty decent arm. I'm going to say that would be the skill set that would work with Brian Dable, even more than Matthew Stafford. But I do believe where there's smoke, there's fire with Matthew Stafford. So I would not be surprised if that's a move that the Giants do, especially
You
if
can
it's
make
going at the cost of like a
similarities
third
between
round pick.
Fields and Josh Allen to a degree, in terms of huge, mobile, big arm. Allen wasn't accurate at first. It took him a while to get to where he is. But
I'll tell you right now, those people that were talking about Daniel Jones being the poor man's Josh Allen, Justin Fields a lot closer to Josh Allen than Daniel Jones ever was. And for the Jets, my prediction is going to be what you alluded to. I think where there's smoke, there's fire. And I listened to that Miami booster talk again on Instagram, and he thinks the Jets are trying to move heaven and earth to move up to get Cam Ward. I don't know they can move up to one, but let's say there's no trade made and you get what some of the mocks have looked like, where it's Hunter and Abdul Carter going 1-2, and then the Giants are sitting there. Now, if the Giants have already traded for Matthew Stafford, like you
they
said,
can still
there's
draft. They can
no
still draft.
reason to
Go.
take
Yeah.
skits. I don't think, and I heard the afternoon show talk about this. I think there's 0% chance if they draft Stafford, if they trade for Stafford and give him a contract, they're not going to then waste the third pick on a quarterback because they were not convinced on either one of these quarterbacks. I can see them then flipping the pick to maybe the Jets for 7-3. Let the Jets come up and take Cam Ward, but that's my prediction for the Jets opening day starter. I think Cam Ward is the opening day starter for the New York Football
Yeah,
Jets.
no, that I like. Especially, I mean, if Hunter and Carter have been going 1-2. The Giants, though, they do need eventually to draft somebody because Stafford, with his injury history, I mean, if Stafford goes down, what are you guys going to do? I mean, it's Arch. Are we back to Arch again? Are we back to Arch for the draft?
Yeah, but if you're gonna give him the money, I don't think you can do what Atlanta just did. I know
No,
I
well,
don't think
no,
I
you
don't know
don't
how
start him
Atlanta's
for
gonna
four
get away
years. Not
with
give him
it,
a 4-year
but
contract. Is that what the plan? Was that the go? I don't know.
no. Well, I mean, who knows? None of us knew understood what Atlanta was doing, and now it looks like, oh, they're geniuses because Kirk Cousins is washed. Well, then why did they give him all that money and then draft Michael Penix in the top 10 last
Yeah,
year?
no, I got you. I got you.
You know? Okay, so my last topic that I want to talk to you about tonight is going to be introduced with a question. So the last three topics we've introduced with a question. I'm going to ask you a question, sir. My question to you is this: how many people have won 2 Super Bowl MVPs or more in the history of the NFL?
How many have
Do you know
won
how
2
many?
or more Super Bowl MVPs?
Mhm.
All right, so we have Brady, Montana. We have Ben only won one. Did he only win one? Ben was one, right? Because he played bad that one Super Bowl. Obviously Mahomes is there.
That's
Obviously
3.
you have your boy Eli Manning's in there. Did Peyton win 2?
4.
He only had 1 2. He
Think Pittsburgh. Think Pittsburgh.
Bradshaw. Bradshaw's another one. Okay, so let's go
Correct.
with 6. Is it like 7? Is it 7 quarterbacks roughly?
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we have
Um,
5. You're only missing
is it?
one.
Is it
Think, think the, think, think the emblem of your
uh,
favorite
um,
team.
Troy. A,
Not Troy.
what's the other guy? You think I know the other guy? The older quarterback. Staubach. Yes.
No,
Oh,
no,
yeah. No,
Bart
it wasn't.
Starr.
I know I'm a fan.
I
No.
was thinking
Oh.
Star, the Dallas Star. No, but
Let's go. I wasn't even going there.
so of those 6 quarterbacks, 5 are retired. 4 of the 5 are in the Hall of Fame. The only one not in the Hall of Fame is Eli Manning. And we know Mahomes will literally
Were they
moonwalk
all first ballots?
backwards into the
Were
Hall
they
of
all
Fame if
first
he were to
ballots?
retire today. What? That I couldn't tell you that. I didn't do
Okay.
that. I didn't do that
All
much
right, go.
research.
Yeah,
Let's calm
go.
down.
Go.
I do have some. I got some other details for you that go also to Eli Manning being a Hall of Famer, and I'm going to credit our friend Rocco for some of this research. He's number 11 all time in yards for quarterbacks. He's number 11 all time in TDs. He had the third longest consecutive playing streak in the NFL. There's something to be said about availability. We just talked about him being a two-time Super Bowl MVP. He is also number 3 in playoff game winners, which I have to say means something considering he only had 2 playoff runs, and he's number 3 all time for quarterbacks for playoff winners, playoff game winners. And is there any other stats I want to share with you tonight? I mean, he's got so many of these fourth quarter comebacks. I said all the time, I thought in the first three and three quarters of a game, Peyton Manning was the better Manning. But I thought when the game was on the line in the fourth quarter, I would take Eli over Peyton 99 times out of 100. He was a more clutch quarterback than his brother, and I don't think it's even debatable.
We could go through this for another half hour. Okay, so we're not even going with the stats. Let's just say, was he ever, if you were to look at his generation of players, do you think that Eli is one of the top 5 quarterbacks of his generation?
Oh, no, I don't. But I do believe it's a different standard than baseball. Whereas you can ask that question for baseball, but there's so many people in the NFL that are in the Hall of Fame already that don't live up to that standard. So that shouldn't be the questioning line. Because if I asked you about that for Joe Namath, you wouldn't say Joe Namath was ever a top 5 in his
No.
generation, would you?
I agree. I can't not disagree with that. But I don't think we could just because we could use that argument that Joe Namath is a Hall of Famer. Oh, okay, Joe Namath is a Hall of Famer. We got to put Eli. Listen, Eli's going to get in. I understand that. But I don't think Eli should get bonus points because he beat the 2 greatest Patriot teams of all time. And I feel like he's getting bonus points for scoring 14, what was it? 17 points in a Super Bowl. And the other one was the luckiest catch of like all time. He made
Against the
so
best team in
because they're
history.
the best, he gets bonus points for being the best team in history. They scored. The defense held them up. They were minus. They were go. You want to talk?
Now, listen. I will agree. I will agree with you that first Super Bowl, you could have easily tried to pick out a defender to give give the MVP to, but he did have the game-winning drive, so that's why inevitably they gave it to the quarterback. He was definitely more of the major part of the story with the second Super Bowl game. He had a much better statistical game that second game, but listen, if I were to give you a vote, I think you would vote for him, whether it be this time or next time, depending on who else is going up with him, that you would eventually vote him for the Hall of Fame. You just didn't want to see him as a first
I
ballot Hall of
don't
Famer.
think. Again, he's going to get in, and I think he probably should get in. I don't think a lot of people that are the pro Eli were like, he's got to get. Like, it was a travesty that he wasn't even close to getting in. He wasn't even close. It's not like he was 1 vote or 2 votes away. He wasn't even close, which is kind of might not be the best thing for the future. I mean, because I guess it's going to depend who's in the future, but I think we have a lot of higher, like, big quality guys coming up in their Hall of Fame candidate, like coming up in their 5 years that may
Yeah,
not help Eli Manning too much in terms of, Philip Rivers is going to get in.
I agree.
Ben Roethlisberger, he could be an argument, but he's going to get in. There's a lot of guys. I think Fitzgerald is in there. That Fitzgerald is a part of that too. There's a lot of guys. So do I think he gets in? Yes, but I just don't see automatic like he's that guy. That's just my really thing of it.
No, I actually think the first ballot was the one for him to make because the next one is definitely, I think, going to be too difficult for him to make, and the one after that he might have a shot. But this was actually the best because there was no other quarterbacks that he wasn't better than that were up, and I figured they would at least bring one quarterback into the fold, into the Hall of Fame. But yeah, that was not the case. Listen, I it will not, maybe we'll be able to have this debate at some point on the podcast, especially until we get like really running with some of the other stuff. But I'm really upset that Don Mattingly's not in the Hall of Fame, but I believe Eli Manning should be in his Hall of Fame before Don Mattingly should be in his, even though Donnie was one of the best players in Major League Baseball for at minimum 5 or 6 years. I believe that he should be in the Hall, and we can argue some of the more of the Hall of Fame snubs and possibilities as we go further on with the podcast. We're going to do some trivia coming up soon. We keep saying we're going to do that, but we've been having nice life get in the way. I had COVID last week, so I've been getting my butt kicked, but I feel much better now. And baseball season's coming upon us for coaching and for
Before we go,
watching.
so I know we were going to leave, but we didn't really talk baseball at all. But we have Giancarlo Stanton on the back burner a little bit with his tennis elbows that he's got going on. What do we quickly just go ahead think about that? Does a big deal? Put him on ice? What are we doing?
Listen, you put him on ice. I think he's gotten to the point where he is so good at the end of the season and in the playoffs that you want him healthy for them. And I'm not saying put him on ice for 8 months of the season, but you know what I mean? Like, if he's going to give you 100 games this year and be ready for the playoffs, give me that.
Just we just need to find kind of like a DH. We don't know for that because we know Judge is going to need his days too. So we got to. I don't know if I hope it's not going to be Dom Smith that we're going to be kind of trotting out there. Who without Giancarlo, who is our DH right now?
It's gonna be a mix. I mean, you're gonna have games where Judge is gonna be. Yeah, you're gonna get games where they're gonna plug Judge at DH, especially when Giancarlo's hurt, and they're gonna play Belly in center. They'll play Jason Dominguez out there. They'll have if your boy Grisham is healthy, he'll play some outfield.
Yeah, I'll wait for that. But yeah, we'll have plenty of time to discuss it. I'm sure next week we'll have some more news on stuff like that. I know Schmidt's hurt too, but we can talk all about that next week. So yeah, got some more spring training coming up. I believe their first spring training game is on Friday. This Friday, I think, with Marcus Stroman on the mound, Mr. Trade Block, Marcus Stroman on the mound. So yeah, we'll talk a little about that. We'll definitely have some more Nets and Knicks as the games actually start up. They start up tonight, actually, but tomorrow's, I think, when everyone's back in action. So yeah, we'll have a lot more. We have March Madness coming up. I believe all the tournaments probably starting at the end of I think next weekend, I want to say, some of those main tournaments because it's the end of the week. So probably next weekend we have some of those conference tournaments. So we'll definitely get probably our own personal brackets out like we told you last week. But yeah, keep following up. Keep following, subscribing. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and X. And until next time, I'm Danny. This is Neil. Signing off.
Tell your friends. Tell your friends.